morning, students. Last class we have to start with the defects. So, point defective, lattice defective. In that having non-ionic solids and ionic solids are there. So, non-stoichiometric, second one is called non-stoichiometric is there. Non-stoichiometry means metal excess defect due to the cation, metal excess defect due to the anion, and also impurity defect also there. Last class we had to complete with the flow sheet for defects. Now today, non-ionic solids having two types. Number one is called vacancy defect, second one is called interstitial defect. Now today I have to explain with the first one is called vacancy defect, second one is called interstitial defect. Vacancy defect means when some lattice sites in a crystal are vacant. Some lattice sites in a crystal are vacant. The crystal is said to be a vacancy defect. So vacancy defect can also caused by heating of the substance. So it is having a lower will be the density of the substance. So that is known as a vacancy defect. Now you are seeing with this diagram, these constituent particles are arranged in a regular manner. So that is called as a crystal solids. Generally, circles indicates the atoms or ions are arranged in a crystal site. In that crystal site, some vacant space is there. This is called a vacant space. Okay, now? So this is called as a vacant is there. That defect is called as a vacant defect. That's why in a crystal, vacant is there. In a crystal site, some lattice sites are in a vacant in a crystal system or in a crystal solid is called as a vacant. Now these atoms are arranged in regular elements. In between some vacant space is there or vacant site is there. So that is called as a vacant defect. In that vacant defect, generally the density of the substance decreases. The density of the substance decreases. So next one is called. It is also called when a substance will be heating means then only in crystal system or crystal solid they have some vacant space is there. How it is vacant space means so this is causes by heating of the substance. So when vacant sites, so in that vacant sites is nothing but the vacant defect. That's why the density will be lower of the substance. Okay, now. So second one is called interstitial defect. Actually, interstitial defect means some metals are joined to regular. Suppose in a crystal lattice sites in there, the atoms are arranged in a regular manner. Okay, now? So in this regular manner, these two metal atoms are adjacent to each other means some space is there that is called as a interstitial sites. That is. Okay, now? Interstitial sites. Now in a crystal, a part of the empty space distributed throughout in the form of voids. Voids means space. Okay, now? So distributed throughout in the form of voids. These voids are called as the interstitial sites. Okay, now? So that's why what is called in a crystal a part of the empty space. So is distributed throughout in the form of voids. So these voids are called as the interstitial sites. Then sometimes certain small atoms or ions occupy these crystal solids. So these voids, the small amount of small atoms or ions, are occupied by the what is called these voids. Voids means space. In that space, a small atoms or ions will be occupied by that voids. So these atoms or ions which occupy the vacant voids, that is nothing but interstitial sites in a crystal is called as the interstitial defect. Now the defect is nothing but interstitial means the small gap or small space or small void in between the entire distributed entire through the crystal solids. In that space, some small amount of the atoms or ions will be occupied by these voids. So that defect is called as a interstitial defect. So in this interstitial defect, the density will become what is called increase the density of the substance. Increase the density of the substance. So these vacant defect and also interstitial defect is nothing but the non-ionic solids. What are the non-ionic solids? So here you can see generally diagram. So 1, 2, 3, 4 these atoms are constituents atoms are arranged in a regular arrangement that is called as a crystal solid. In that crystal solid in between what is there voids will be formed. In these voids is nothing but interstitial site. That interstitial sites a small atoms or ions will be occupied by these voids is called as a interstitial defect. Okay now, thus void, first void is formed. In that void a small amount of atoms or ions are occupied by these voids is nothing but, so that defect is nothing but interstitial defect. In that interstitial defect, density increases of the substances, whereas in a vacant defect the density will be lowered, whereas in interstitial effect the increase the density of the substance because in that voids the small atoms or ions are occupied by these voids is nothing but the interstitial void. The other name the defect is known as a interstitial defects. Okay now. So next you can know, so ionic solids having two types is there. Number one is called Schottky defect, second one is called Frenkel defect. What is the name of Schottky defect? Second one is called Frenkel defect. These two are very important for a PUC as well as object 2. That two are called as a ionic solids. But so in this vacancy defect or interstitial defects are called non-ionic defect, whereas ionic solids contains this Schottky defect and also Frenkel defect. Okay now, I have to explain with both the two, that is called as a Frenkel as well as Schottky defect. Those two are called as a ionic solids.